Hi everyone. So today in this video we'll see how Selenium works internally, right? I mean, we were writing some code in Selenium to automate our web applications, right? So how each lines of Selenium code works, right? So I mean, all the codes that we write, right? So it is, I mean, it's working through the JSON Wire Protocol over the HTTP calls, right? So very recently, I mean, from the Selenium version 4, they moved from JSON Wire Protocol to W3 standards, right? That we see later. But again, they are still using this format only. I mean, all the calls that they make, it's over the HTTP calls. Okay. So for example, so here we have written some code, right? So this is a code to go to this website, and I'm updating some values, and I'm clicking on the submit button, and I'm retrieving the value from the website. Whatever they have updated, I'm just using the getText method to retrieve all the value to the console. Okay. So when it's come to the Selenium, it's like a single line, right? Say driver dot get it a single line, driver dot find element by XPath, and using the send keys, everything is a single line. So how actually this call, I mean, each call will be go to the our browser, right? So this is the architecture of Selenium WebDriver. So this is our scripting language. So where this convert as a JSON wire protocol, and it will be passed to our respective drivers, right? So the driver will communicate to the each browser, right? So they have removed this JSON wire protocol in Selenium 4, and they have introduced this W3C protocol. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see the first JSON wire protocol. So this is a JSON wire protocol. You can get it from the Selenium HQ GitHub page. So here you can see, so all implementation of WebDriver that communicate with the browser or remote WebDriver shall use the common wire protocol. This wire protocol defines the RESTful web services using the JSON over HTTP, right? So what does the mean? Like, so they are using the RESTful web services using the JSON over the HTTP calls. So whatever the command that we write, right? So driver dot find element by any ID or name, then we are passing some value or we are doing some click operations, right? So these all control over through the JSON wire protocol using the HTTP methods. Okay, so we'll see one by one. So here client is our WebDriver API being used, and the server is like a, so the remote running, I mean the mission running on the remote WebDriver. And we need a one session like where we have to maintain our browser session, right? So browser per session, and we have to pass the web element that come from the DOM. So these are the web element JSON object, and we have capabilities of JSON object. We have so many things: desired capabilities, actual capabilities, right? So now we have written this code, right? So what this code will do, it will go to this website and it will feed the username, address, everything, and it will click on the submit button, and we are retrieving the some text. Okay, so I will execute this line, I mean this class. So it has executed, so it has passed the username and address, and it has clicked the submit button, and we are getting some text here, right? So the text I'm printing in my console. Okay, so this is how we write the code in Selenium, right? So when we run this code, you can see here the first thing is, we are starting the Chrome driver, right? So after that, I mean, one session is created in on the browser session. After that, you can see here it is using a W3C W3C protocol, right? So that's what we see here, right? So earlier it was like a JSON protocol. They have migrated to W3C protocol. So when you go to this website, right? So here you can see, so they have see the current W3 specification for WebDriver. So when you go to this website, you can see what HTTP calls they are using over the JSON protocol. So here, okay, this is a standard for WebDriver W3 editors drop. Okay, so when you scroll down here, so I mean these are the documents that you can read down. So the very first thing is like, so we have to start the session, right? So the very first thing, the where I mean when you run the code, right? So it's starting the session first, right? So it's a create a session. After that, it will start the execution, right? So for creating the session, this is the endpoint that we have to call. Okay, so for example, So here we are passing this driver dot get, right? So how this driver dot get will work? So what kind of call it's going behind the screen, right? So here we are simply passing the driver dot get element, right? I mean driver dot get URL we are passing, which means it will whatever the URL that you pass here, it will be given to the browser, right? So for this one, what kind of call they are using, right? So this is basically driver dot get, right? So we have to look for a get method here. So when you come here, so here, for example, driver dot get, right? So the get request. Okay, so these are the state, I mean HTTP methods. Okay, so these are the HTTP methods you can see here. So the first one is post method session, right? So for create a new session, we have to call this endpoint, right? This is an endpoint that controlled by the post method, right? So after creating a session, what we have to do? We have to do like a maximize the window or minimize the window, right? So for example, if we want to maximize the window, so this is a endpoint, right? So this endpoint will do the maximization of your browser, right? So for maximizing, we have to use this endpoint. Like we have to pass this endpoint like a session ID. We have to use the session ID that we are generating from the first call, right? So this here we are generating the session ID, right? When you make this call, you will be getting some browser session ID, right? So here you can see. So here we don't see the session ID. So here we can see the only driver session. So this is a driver session that running on my port. And after that, the session ID will be the control for all the execution throughout the class file, right? So here you can see the session. The server should maintain one browser per session, right? The session ID we are taking from the our first call, our first HTTP call, right? So first HTTP call should be in the post method. After that, we can do all the things like, for example, if you want to navigate the new URL, right? So this is driver.get method, right? So if you want to go back and forward, refresh, right? And you want to take the screenshot. Everything is controlled by you over the HTTP calls. Okay, so now we'll see this all the things in through the postman. We'll try to make we'll try to automate the same scenario through the postman. Okay, so now I will open my postman. So this driver.get is what? This is post method, right? So in the post method, what we have to pass in the body, we have to pass the URL value. Right? So the URL value is whatever you are passing here. It will go to the it will create the it will pass this URL to the your browser. Okay, so that's what they given here. So when you go to this get URL, right? So this is a post method. So when I click on this, you can see this is an endpoint that we have to use. This is an endpoint post method, right? Session slash session ID and what's the URL. I mean, this is a URL endpoint. So for this one, the parameters are session ID and the JSON parameters, we have to use the URL. So this is what you have to give in the your request body. Okay. So now we'll see one by one. So I have created one set of collections here. So the very first call would be creating a session, right? So we have to create one session. So before creating session, so we have to start our Chrome driver. So here by Selenium code, we have written to start the Chrome driver automatically. So when it's come to the manual thing, we have to start our Chrome driver manually. Okay, so I have started my Chrome driver, which is running on 9515 port. Okay, so that is what I am taking here. Local host 95154 slash session. The slash session is that's the endpoint that we have to use, right? So for creating the session. So when you pass this one, so now you can see we have started this Chrome driver manually. When I make this request, you can see the automatically Chrome browser will be open. Okay, so for here, what are the capabilities that I'm using here is, so for example, in the body, right? So in the body, I'm using the capabilities as browser name. Okay, so when you search for these capabilities here, okay, so here you can pass the browser name. Browser name is one of the capabilities for JSON object. So here we can use Chrome, Firefox, any browser that you want to use. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and create one session. Okay, so for this one, post method, creating the session, right? So you can see here, by using the browser name as a browser capabilities, I am passing the Chrome driver as my browser name. Okay, so Chrome as my browser name. When I make this call, you can see one Chrome browser will open automatically here and one session will be created. So after this, okay, so here you can see, so when we make this, it will maintain one browser per session, right? So I will make this call. Now you can see the Chrome driver, I mean the Chrome browser will open automatically and we will be getting some response, right? In the response, we could see all the session ID and other details as well. We'll wait for the response to be completed. Here you can see this Chrome drive, I mean browser is started automatically, right? So this is being controlled by the automated test software. We'll wait for some time, taking some time. Okay, now we can see the browser is open and we are getting some response, which is 200. Okay, right? So here you can see all the capabilities. So in the capabilities, I mean, we are using the Chrome browser, right? So the browser version is 87 and we could see all some other details as well. Okay, so here you can see the timeouts. The default timeouts come from the Selenium, right? So implicit is 0 and page load is this is a time unit for the page load timeout unit, and this is for script, right? So end of the response, you could see the session ID, right? So this is a session ID to control our complete browser session, right? So that is what they said. The server should maintain one browser per session, right? So with this, command sent to the session will direct to the corresponding browser, right? This session ID we have to take to make the to pass it across all the other requests that we make, right? The subsequent requests that we make, right? So we need this session ID. I have taken this session ID from the response. I have and I store it as an environment variable. Okay. So now what is the next call should be? Next call we have to make the we have to so we have started we have done this line. So we have started our Chrome driver manually and we have created one session on the Chrome browser. So the next step would be we have to pass the URL, right? So for passing the URL, what call we have to make? So when you come here, you can type the URL. So the URL call is post method, right? So here you can see the navigate to the new URL, right? So when I click on this method, so this is a method, right? So we have to use the post method, right? So session colon session ID you have to pass, then URL. So what is the JSON parameter that we have to pass in the body? We have to pass the URL. So I have taken this endpoint. So this is my next request, right? So sending the URL. So here, this is the endpoint that we have to use, session ID, then URL. So in the body, what we have to pass? We have to pass the particular URL that you want to pass in the browser, right? So when I make this request, you can see automatically the URL will be given to this browser automatically. You can see now, right? So the URL is passed now. We are getting the 200 response. So after this URL is passed, so we can go for some like a browser refresh, right? So browser refresh is again the post method. So when you come here, I will copy this refresh method, right? So this is a browser refresh and it's against a post call. So we have to pass the URL parameter as a session ID and we don't need any body to be passed here, right? So but still it is a post method. So you can leave this browser body as a empty JSON. Also fine. Otherwise, you can pass the URL also. That will also work. Okay, so I will remove this URL and let's see what happens. So the browser is refreshing now. Yeah, you can see the browser is refreshed, right? Again, I will make this. You can see this browser is getting refreshed or not, right? It's getting refreshed, right? So it's not mandatory you have to pass any URL here. You can pass empty JSON also. Okay. So after the browser refresh, what we have to do, we have to maximize this window, right? So for maximizing the window, first we have to take the window session, right? So whenever you go to this, how to say, like so whenever you find like so multiple window, right? So we will go for a window handler in Selenium, right? The same concept here, you have to get the window session ID, right? So window session ID we have to take. So for that one, this is an endpoint that we have to use session ID slash window. When I make this call, so you can see in the response of window ID. So this is how you see in the our normal Selenium code when you go for a window handler, right? So, for example, you are clicking on some button that takes you some another window or some tab will open, right? So, for those scenarios, this kind of response you can see in the console, right? This is for the current window. This is a current window session, right? So, I have taken this from the response and I am storing in the environment variable, right? Because this is a window that I have to pass, maximize my window, I mean my browser, right? So, when it's come to the maximize, so I will copy this maximize and I will check for the endpoint, right? This is a post method, right? So post method, what we have to pass, we have to pass the URL parameter as a session ID. That's all, right? So we don't want to pass anything in the request body, right? So in the request body, I'm just sending the empty JSON. So what is my session ID? This is my session ID, and I'm asking this window to be maximized, right? So here we are not using this session ID, but we will use this session ID when it is required. I mean, the window ID, right? So the window ID will come into the picture like when you maximize the, I mean, when you set the, once again, okay, so we are not using window ID anywhere. I- Yeah. So, I mean, this is for taking the window control. Okay. So after this, to maximize the window, we need session ID. So now you can see the browser. When I make this request, you can see the browser, I mean, automatically will maximize, right? It's maximized, right? So after maximize, like you can set time some timeouts. Like so for timeouts, I'm doing the implicit wait, which is 2 seconds, right? So when I make this call, I mean nothing will happen. You cannot see anything on the browser. It will wait for a 2 seconds. So after that, I'm trying to get the title of the page, right? So in the title of the page also, it's a get method. We don't need any body here, so you can leave as it is. So when I make this, you can see in the response, it will give in the tools QA, right? So the tools QA is the body, I mean, title of this page. So how do we check? We can go to the page source here. So here you can search for title, right? So the here title is tools QA, right? So that is what I mean, returning in the response as well. Okay. So after that, the similar thing like so we can get the URL of the current page. So the current page of the URL is this one, right? This is a URL demoqa.com. This is a URL, right? So after this, what we are doing, we are trying to input some value into the boxes, I mean text boxes, right? So here, when you see this line, right? So this line is single line when you come to the Selenium code, right? So but in the behind the screen over the HTTP calls, right? So till this driver dot find element, right? This is one call, okay? So this is handled by the post method. Okay. So when you come here, this send keys, right? The send keys also one more post method. First, we have to locate the element. Okay. So this is also one more post method. Now I will tell you. Okay. This one also one more post method. Okay. So now we'll make this call. So now we'll see, we'll try to locate this element first. Okay, so I want to type my name here. So for typing the name, right, so we use this driver dot get text. I mean, driver dot find element by the XPath, or we are using this one to retry, I mean, to get this particular web element, right? So for particular, I mean, to getting this web element, right? So this is a endpoint that we have to use, right? So I will copy this element. I will go to this browser. So here you can see. So this is an endpoint that comes in the post method. You can see all the class name, CSS selector ID you can use as a strategy. And then the JSON parameter, we have to use the particular locator and particular target value. Okay, then it will return some web element. Uh, I mean, it will return some web element ID that which that web element ID we have to use this in keys to update the input to the particular text box. Okay. So this is an endpoint that I have taken from the website. So in the body, what we have to pass? In the body, we have to pass any parameters like this. I mean, any strategy like a class name or CSS selector, ID, name, XPath, anything you can pass. So for this one, I am passing my XPath. So this is a XPath value. So when I make this like that, what we'll be getting in the response? It will return some element string in the response, right? So now we can see So in the response, we are getting some element string, right? So the element ID we have to take, and I am storing it as my environment variable. Here you can see I am storing this value as my environment variable by the name of name box element, right? So I have taken this now. So after this, what we have so far what we have done, we have completed this line, right? So driver dot find element, we have identified this element and we have taken that element string, right? Element string value that we have taken. After that, we have to pass the some text to this box, right? So for passing the text, we have to use this value method, right? So when you come to this value method, okay, so this is a value method. So again, this is also post method, right? So we have to pass the, it's a send key sequence, right? So send key in the sense like a, so where we are using this driver dot find element send keys method, right? So here you can pass anything. Okay. So this is the endpoint, and we have to pass the session ID and ID as well, and we have to pass the JSON parameters. So what the text value that you have to pass here? So this is a text value I'm trying to pass. I'm trying to pass my name in the text box, right? This is a box that we have identified in our previous request that we have taken the element particular element value. That element value, okay, that element value I am passing it here, right? So this is element value that we taken from the previous request, right? So I have taken this and I have stored as environment variable name box element, right? So that the name box element ID I am passing it here. This is my element, and this is a value. Value is my endpoint, right? So what the value I have to pass? I have to type my name, right? So now you can see as soon as I make this call, so my name will be typed into the browser automatically, right? So this one also done. Similarly, we can take the address box. So for address box also, I'm using the CSS selector. So in our previous case, I have used the XPath. So here the same endpoint, right? So we have to, I mean, retrieve this value, right? So I'm here updating the current address. So for the address, current address, this is a CSS selector value I'm using. So it will return some element string. I have taken this element string and I'm storing it as an environment variable. Here you can see address box element, right? So after that, what we have to do, we have to pass the send keys. So what are the keys, I mean, value that you want to pass, you have to pass like this. So you have to pass that element variable here. Then I'm passing this is as a text, right? So 123 as my address. So when I make this call, you can see the current address will be updated as this value. Okay, I'm making this call. You can see here, right? It happened automatically. I mean, immediately. Maybe I will delete this again. I will again do the call. You can see now. Okay. So after this, what we are trying to see, we have to click on the submit button, right? So for submit button also again, so when it's come to the Selenium code, it's very, I mean, it's a single line code. We will, I mean, give the element and we'll use the click method, right? But when it's come to the HTTP call, it's again broken into the two pieces of call. One is we have to locate the element first. After that, we have to make the click operation, right? So for the locating the element, here also I'm again using the XPath for locating the submit button. Okay, so when I make this call, it will return some element string value. Okay, this element string value I have taken and I have kept this on the environment variable, right? Submit box element. So when you go for a click method, so here I am passing that same element, submit a box element that is coming from the environment variable. So in the body, right, so you don't want to pass anything because this is a click method, right? So even though it is a click, it's a post method. Okay. So when you come here, you can see this name. Okay. So click is a post method, right? So when you go here, you can see. So we have to pass the session ID and there are no request, I mean, JSON body is available. So you can simply make this call. So now you can see automatically the submit button will click. After the submit button click, what happens? Here will be, I mean, whatever the details that we have given here, it will be displayed here, right? So now I will make this call. Okay, so the response will be null. I mean, we are getting the 200, which means okay. So now when we come to the browser, you can see the submit button is clicked and whatever the details that we have given, it is updated here, right? So now we have to read this value to make sure whatever the I mean, details are correct or not, whatever we passed here, it is correct or not, right? So for this one, what we'll do, we will simply call this get text method, right? So the same thing again. So this driver dot find element, this locator is one call. Again, we have to go for a get text, right? So for here, particularly taking that element, right? So I am passing this method called post method. We have to locate that element first, right? So here again, I'm using the CSS selector to locate that particular element, right? So when I make this call, I will be getting some element string value, right? The string value ID I'm taking in environment variable I have stored, right? So this is my entered text element as an environment variable. Okay, that's what coming in the response as well. I have taken this and I have stored in the environment variable. So now we have identified the element. So now we have to get the text, right? So for getting the text, for get text, right? So this is a get text method. Okay, this is a given to the get method. So when you come here, you can see it return the visible text of the element, right? So we have to pass the session ID, the respective element ID also we have to pass. So here, when it's come to the postman, so session ID, the particular element ID we have to pass. So in the response, what we'll be seeing here, so we'll be seeing all the things in the response, right? So when I make this call, you can see. So here you can see, right? So whatever the value that we have passed, name is my name, and the current address, whatever we have passed here, right? So similarly, we can use a number of calls like this. So for example, if you want to take the screenshot, you want to take the, delete the cookies, right? So you want to make the submit button, you want to make the send key, keys, right? Like a key sequence, keyboard accents, and if you want to clear also, you can clear, right? And displayed, it's enabled, everything, it's over through the HTTP calls only. Okay, so now additionally we'll see this take screenshot method, like taking the screenshot also again get method. So I will search for this endpoint. Okay, this is a get method. We have to pass only session ID. It will return the string of base 64 encoded PNG format. Okay, so when I make this call, you can see, it is encoded PNG format, so we will not be seeing the, complete screenshot here. But here you can see some values are coming. So that is, the response is coming as a true error, which means it's a, success, right? So that's what they're given here. So you can see the string, as a string, it will return the screenshot as a base 64 encoded PNG, right? So we cannot see the complete one here, but like for example, if you see here, no, when I make this call, you can see the browser will, it will blink, or it will kind of refresh. It will not refresh, it's kind of blink, you can see here. So now the browser is, silent. Now you can see one yellow thing will come here. Now you can see, right? So which means it has taken the screenshot. Okay, so in another way, now you can see, okay, something is happening, but we could not see that one, right? So when I make this call, you can see the browser is automatically taken the screenshot, right? So end of the session, like what we have to do, we have to close the browser session, right? So for closing the browser session, we have to use the delete method. Okay. So the delete, what will do, it will kill the session ID. It is again delete method. We don't want to pass any body here. Okay, so I will go for a delete method. Yeah. So this is a delete method. Close the current window, right? So here we don't have any request body, only your parameter, that is session ID, we have to pass. Okay. So when I make this call, you can see the browser will automatically close. See, the browser is closed, right? we are getting the 200 status. So this is one sequence I have tried to automate this complete scenario. Okay, so this one I have kept as a collection. So when I run this as a collection, right, you can see the difference. So the same thing that what we tried from this Selenium code, right? The same setup I have done in my Postman as well. So now I will run as a collection. You can see the difference. Okay. So first I have started my Chrome driver manually. Make sure your Chrome driver and your browser in the same version. Otherwise it will not work. Okay. So I will run this now. You can see first thing that the browser is started now. Okay, it is giving some problem. I will stop the browser. I will again start the Chrome driver. New Chrome driver. I will start manually. So now I will run the collection. Let's see. Yeah, now it is started. Right. I will open the browser here, and you can see browser refresh is happening. And next thing, yeah, browser maximized. You can see the textures are entered, right? So submit button is clicked and get text also pass and browser is closed, right? So these are the steps that we do basically from the Selenium code. When you write the Selenium code, right? So we'll create the session, we'll pass the URL, we'll refresh the browser, right? We'll maximize the window, and I just use this timeout, that is implicit timeout, right? After that, getting the page of title and current URL, and I'm entering some value into the text boxes. After that, I'm clicking on the submit button. After that, I'm getting the whatever the text I have, passed, and I'm taking one screenshot. I'm deleting the session. Right. This is one sequence of so what we seen in the this Selenium code. Right. So this is how the Selenium WebDriver work. Basically through the W3C protocols. Okay. So this one also you can see here. So here you have all the methods, right? The same methods they are used in the JSON Wire Protocol. The same thing they are using in the W3C protocol as well. Okay, you can set the window size. You can maximize, minimize. Right? You can find element. We have find element, right? We have that one. Did that one. You can go for a get text and the element clear. Everything is here. Okay. So I will share this URL into the video description. You can go through it. Okay. So this is for alerts, right? So get alert, accept alert, dismiss alerts, everything is controlled through the JSON Wire Protocol only. Okay, so now recently they have moved to W3C protocol. So what are the code that you have written? It will communicate through the W3C protocol using over the HTTP methods. Okay, so WebDriver use the JSON Wire Protocol over the HTTP calls. So that HTTP calls are this one, like a post, get, delete, everything. Okay, so this is how this is WebDriver will work internally through the JSON Wire Protocol or W3C Wire Protocol. Okay, so from the Selenium 4, they have started using this W3C protocol. That's the reason they are recommending to go here. Okay, so when you come to this page, you can see the W3 specification of WebDriver. That is the page, this one. Okay, so this is how the Selenium WebDriver works. So each line, right? So whatever the line that you write here, so it's everything is controlled through the HTTP calls on the JSON Wire Protocol. Okay, so here it's look like some only single line. So when we tried, right, so it is again two methods, right? So till this one, we have to find the locate. We have to locate this element. After that, we have to pass the keys, send keys. Okay, so that's all about this Selenium, how the Selenium WebDriver works through the HTTP calls. Okay, so if you guys have any comments or clarification, please feel free to update in the video comment section. Okay, thank you guys.